Oh, good. Good. Nice hamburger. Oh.
I read on your Facebook, I think one person has finished maybe, or two?
So, the last day of my Memorial Day food challenge trip to Vegas was going to be a doubleheader. Not just any doubleheader, but a monster doubleheader. About an hour after taking down the Monster Burger at the Omelette House in Henderson, I headed over to CJ's Italian Ice and Custard restaurant in Las Vegas to take on their monster challenge, which actually consisted of 3 cold dessert items: the super brownie sundae, the banana boat, and 32 ounces of Italian ice. These 3 dessert items were not enormous, but they were incredibly cold and they were very sweet. You only got 30 minutes to attempt to finish the challenge, and the challenge had very specific rules. First off, every item had to be eaten using its own spoon. I have no idea why, but you were not allowed to use one spoon for all 3 objects. You know, rules is rules, and you just gotta play by the rules of the house. I tried to avoid all of the Italian ice flavors that involve dairy because dairy is usually a little extra taxing on your body. I think I went with cola. Of course, keeping in mind that I'd come to this monster challenge straight after doing a huge burger at the Omelette House, I didn't have a huge amount of free room in my stomach, so I attempted to take down the CJ's Monster Challenge by using as little liquid as possible. The good thing about ice cream and frozen yogurt and gelato and custard is that these things are pretty liquidy and you generally don't need a huge amount of water to swallow them. Only 2 people had finished this challenge at the time that I had arrived at the place, and I believe the house record stood at 15 minutes and 30 seconds. That might not seem like a big deal, except for the fact that the hardest object of the 3 is definitely the Italian ice. I say that because the Italian ice is pretty much kept in a freezer, and it is frozen. By the time I got to my quart of Italian ice, it was still rock solid. Of course, no matter what happens, you always have to play by the rules of the restaurant because they're the ones who are making up the challenge. And so the server on hand actually called the owner because by the time I'd finished the super brownie sundae and the banana boat, my quart of Italian ice was still rock solid. There was no way I was going to be able to eat that. So on the phone, on the fly, with the clock running, they decided that it would be okay to switch out the frozen quart I had for some freshly dispensed stuff right out of the tub. I don't know how to describe that, out of the tap. So the server went over to dispense roughly a quart of Italian ice right out of the tap, something that would be a bit more edible, a bit more manageable, something that would not totally destroy my teeth, but even so, it was still incredibly cold. It was frozen, like it was straight up just ice. It was just like fresh slush. And that was my first encounter with Italian ice, and honestly, it has a different texture than anything else that I'd eaten. Like, it's not the same as a squishy or a slushy or a Slurpee. You know, Italian ice is like this beast unto itself. It's completely different from anything else I'd ever eaten, and if you ever get a chance to eat Italian ice, like, you'll know what I mean. It's just like, you know, if you've never had custard before. Custard, which I believe is made primarily with egg yolks, is much different from, you know, frozen yogurt or ice cream. I thought the funniest aspect was that they made the decision to switch out the rock solid ice for the softer ice, like with the clock running. I mean, you know, it's kind of funny. It reminds me of the time I was taking that 5-pound poutine challenge in Oregon, and they stopped me mid-challenge to sign the waiver, just in case, you know, I choked, the restaurant would not be liable. I I still think that's one of the funniest events that's ever happened to me in all the years I've been doing this. And of course, this comes on the same trip to Vegas where I took the 40 tacos in 40 minutes challenge, where like you basically had to eat your tacos like one tray at a time before they'd bring you the rest. So it's like twice in one trip where I had this weird experience with like time being used in like a really weird way. I think I may have lost like a minute or two or so like that on waiting for the custard to, or not the custard, but the ice to be served, but really no matter. And I'm leaving this video full length just so you can get a full appreciation of like how difficult it got towards the end for me to eat that Italian ice. You can see that I am in a lot of pain. There were certain moments there where it felt like my tongue was completely numb and my teeth were so cold they ached. Of course, I did this a couple months before doing the Farrell's Ice Cream Eating Championship, and it gave me a good taste for what that was going to be like. I had some dentistry done a year ago, and right after it left me pretty weak. Like anytime I'd eat something cold, like it would just totally wear me out. And if you happen to be interested in how I got started in doing restaurant challenges, I have linked down below the vlog over on my other channel in which I describe how that went down. And I will have other vlogs coming up in which I describe other things that have gone on to me in the world of competitive eating, food challenges, YouTube, and just life in general. If you haven't seen the other challenges from this trip, they're also in the links down below. You can see me take on Johnnie Be Bad's burger. You can see me take on a 6-pound Monster Burrito, a 40 taco challenge, and of course the Monster Burger at the Omelet House that took place only about an hour before CJ's Monster Dessert Challenge. Recording inside CJ's was actually tougher than I thought because no matter where you sat, there was light pouring into the building from all sides. Like, it's incredibly lit inside, but there's a lot of washout, as you can see in the footage I have here. And I tried setting up in different places, and no matter where I sat, you know, there was a ton of light coming from behind me, which is usually the hardest thing that you try to account for. Usually you want the light coming from in front of you, but no matter where I sat, I had light coming from everywhere. So I apologize for a lot of the washed out and kind of grainy effect that you're seeing in this video. Some of the low quality in the footage also comes from the fact that it's zoomed in a little bit because I didn't realize just how close the camera should have been on this one. For those curious, this challenge costs about $30 if you fail. And should you fail, your picture will be put up on the wall of shame. But if you win, your picture goes up on the wall of fame and you get a free t-shirt celebrating your victory. If you happen to be in Sin City and you want to take on a sweet challenge, CJ's has just the ticket for you. And at 12 minutes and 30 seconds, it was all over. I made history by setting an all-new house record for the CJ's Monster Challenge. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to click thumbs up, subscribe to Freak Eating, and stay tuned for all of my upcoming eating challenge shenanigans. Until we eat again, stay in school, don't do drugs, and eat like a freak.